Good evening. My name is Melissa Martin. I'm also part of the steering committee. I have the honor and privilege of introducing to you tonight not just an eco-warrior, but a proven eco-juggernaut who has something important for us to understand tonight. It's a success story that he'll be sharing, and it's just simply amazing to me. Mr. Wayne Mills is a retired vice president from Washington Gas. He also, between 1998 and 2005, he led the fight to help save the Chesapeake Bay, as chairman of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and he's still currently an honorary member. Today, he is the chairman for Southern Enterprises, and also on the board of directors for ORCA, the Ocean Research and Conservation Association. We're very fortunate to have him living in our neck of the woods these days because he is continuing the fight for us, for our lagoon. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Wayne Mills.
I'm speechless. I'm so speechless. Melissa is one of the all-stars on an all-star team that I've been privileged to get to know and work with over the last few months. I just can't say enough about them. You're meeting several of them tonight. I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly congratulate Dwayne on his appointment to the executive director position at the NEP. Dwayne has the management skills and abilities. Certainly you can see it on display tonight, the enthusiasm to get the job done and help move the needle and help us restore the Indian River Lagoon. So congratulations, Dwayne. Thank you. I'd like to begin by saying to all of you here tonight that I am humbled and feel very privileged to be in your company. And the reason I say that is because you may not know it. You may not be able to see it right now. And some of you may not believe it. But I suggest to you that your children, your grandchildren, and indeed your great-grandchildren will hold you as the generation who stepped forward with thousands of others who feel the way you do, down the Indian River Lagoon, through Vero, Fort Pierce, especially Stewart, through Florida Bay, around the Everglades, up the St. Lucie, and down the Caloosahatchee, who've had enough. You're the generation who's stepping forward and finally saying, enough is enough. I look at you as the generation and thousands like you who will demand your right under federal law to clean water. They will look upon you as the generation who said, we're effectively declaring war on pollution from all sources. And they will look upon you as the generation who said, don't even think about running for public office at the local, state, or federal level unless you can place environmental restoration as a top priority in which you go to office to do. I love your enthusiasm. 3 years ago, my friend Lisa Soto with MRC called me and said, Wayne, we're having the American Assembly here. First time it's going to be held in a number of years here at FIT. The subject's going to be, what do we do to save the Indian River Lagoon? She said, would you come and tell the story of the Chesapeake Bay and share lessons learned? I was eager to do so. And I did that. And one of the lessons that I shared with the group is a tough one to admit to ourselves in America. And that is, more often than not, The fight to restore our natural world is a long, hard, difficult struggle against the forces of apathy, I don't know and I don't care, the forces of ignorance, those that just don't have the facts, and unfortunately against the forces of greed and self-serving greed. Some will tell you we can't afford to do it. But I'm going to tell you, you can't afford not to do it. Chesapeake Bay Foundation commissioned a study 2.5 years ago to give us the value, the economic value of a restored Chesapeake Bay. We hired outside third parties, expert in the field, and we had an idea what it might be worth. They came back with a number that blew our socks off. It was in excess of $100 billion. Unimaginable. But when you stop and think about it and read the report, it all adds up. I'm going to suggest to you that if we did the same thing in Florida, it would be a multiple of that number. When you stop and think about our beautiful estuaries, rivers, springs, the magnificent Florida Keys, Florida Bay, and the Everglades, it would be easy to see a multiple of that number. It takes leadership, passion, resolve, long-term commitment, such as I think we have on this team that brought us together tonight for this inaugural event. I want to read you some headlines here for just a second. My friend Ed Killer, who's the sports writer for the TC Palm down in Stewart, maybe you read his article about a month ago. He was tired of this and tired of that and tired of all the excuses, and he really laid it out pretty well. But this is what he's tired of too. These are some headlines the media has carried. Indian River Lagoon, an apocalyptic deathscape. Florida's coastal environments are collapsing. Silver Springs Alliance calls FDEP cleanup plan a sham. Florida Springs Council requests federal EPA to intercede, saying Florida DEP plan falls miserably short of what's needed to restore Silver Springs and Silver Springs River. And most recently, and this is just one of many, many headlines, most recently, you might have read this past week, scientists have identified a possible link between a neurotoxin in blue-green algae and a relationship between Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. So I say to you, if now isn't the time for us to really get this thing solved, I don't know when is. I just read a little book, and the author said the word hope came on the scene about 1,000 years ago. And at the time, it was understood to mean a combination of confidence and desire. Well, I want to tell you tonight, as bleak as these headlines are, and as depressing as it sounds, I'm very, very hopeful of our being able to get this job done in your lifetime and in your children's lifetime. The reason is because the desire is on display tonight and around the state. I'm confident because of that desire in one other item of a technical nature that I'm going to share with you now that is the last chapter that's been written in the saga of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and our efforts to restore it. Chesapeake Bay Foundation will be 50 years old next year. Started in 1967, and it has been a long, hard, arduous struggle. For 40 of those years, we had governors of all 6 states in the District of Columbia come together, make pledges every 5 or 10 years, sign compacts, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And the reality hit myself and our board in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s. We had to do a self-assessment, and it wasn't a pretty picture. It turns out at the trajectory we were on, we weren't going to get the job done. And we're all familiar with Einstein's definition of insanity, and that's doing the same thing today as yesterday and expecting different results. Well, we were sort of in that pickle. And after long, hard thought, there was only one option that we had available that we could call on to save the Chesapeake Bay in a reasonable period of time. And that was we sued EPA to come in and enforce the Clean Water Act. At first, EPA fought us. A change of administrations took place in Washington, and a young lady by the name of Leeson Jackson became the new executive director. And she saw the benefit of working collaboratively with us. And we joined hands with the 6 states, and over the next couple of years, built something called the Chesapeake Bay Clean Water Blueprint. I smile because it was effectively a pollution diet for all 6 states. They all mutually agreed what they had to do. They had different sources of pollution. We're basically talking about reductions in nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediments. No sooner had we agreed to that plan and published it, much to our dismay, and we were sued in district court. The plaintiffs were the American Farm Bureau, the Corn Growers, the Fertilizer Institute, the Hog Growing Council, and numerous other ag players. We were very dismayed about this. We won overwhelmingly in district court. The plaintiffs were then planning to take it on appeal to the United States Court of Appeals. And to my chagrin as a new Florida resident, they were enjoined in that appeal process by the state of Florida, Pam Bondi, Governor Scott, and 21 other states. That's about how I felt. Thank God the appeals court saw it our way and yielded a decision, an opinion that was overwhelmingly in our favor, and basically said, this is what's supposed to happen when the federal government asks the states to meet the conditions in the Clean Water Act, and we applaud it. Well, you know what happened next. They tried to appeal it to the Supreme Court. I was lucky enough to have another birthday on March 2nd this year. And the best gift I've ever gotten was a Supreme Court decision on February 29th that said, we're not taking the case. The law of the land is going to be the appeals court decision. Well, you can imagine the celebration that we had in the Chesapeake Bay. It was a historic decision, and it will allow us to go forward with that plan to save the Chesapeake. I just got an email this morning. I sent it to a few folks on the coalition here and to some politician friends. It was a report of how we're doing in the Chesapeake since 2010 when that plan went into effect. And it's very, very encouraging. Nitrogen's down, phosphorus down, sediments down, crabs are up, oysters are up, grasses are up. Ladies and gentlemen, it can be done. It's not easy. As several of the speakers said, and as Dwayne said, it's going to take all of us working together. We've all got a piece of this action. But with your support and your energy, I look forward to coming back here and celebrating the restoration of the Indian River Lagoon with you. Thank you.